In a world where speaking out can literally cost you your life, few voices are better equipped to explain the stakes of journalism today than our guest. I'm E&P magazine publisher Mike Blinder. Today, my guest is Dr. Peter Laufer, world-traveling journalist, author of more than 20 books, and the James Wallace Chair of Journalism at the University of Oregon. Over his career, Peter has reported from Central America to the Middle East, created investigative programming for National Geographic and Mother Jones, and becoming a leading voice in press freedom and journalistic safety. We had originally scheduled this interview to talk about his latest book, Don't Shoot the Journalists, Migrating to Stay Alive, a book he edited that grew out of a University of Oregon conference. It documents real-life stories of reporters around the world focused into exile because of threats to their lives, from Afghanistan and Gaza to right here in the United States. But in the hours before we recorded this conversation, shocking news broke: the public shooting death of Charlie Kirk. While Kirk was best known as a political activist and commentator, he also was a podcaster with a large national following. His killing underscores how fragile the line has become between public voices, political or journalistic, and the violence they can attract. So in addition to discussing the book, I'll ask Peter how tragedies like this reframe the dangers working in media today, what lessons young reporters need to carry into the field, and what our industry loses when voices are silenced. Stick around after the break for this timely, sobering conversation.
Hello, my name is Walter Hussman. Our family has been in the news business for over 100 years. Journalism includes two parts: reporting the news and providing opinions. But in recent years, there's been too much opinion appearing in news reporting. This has eroded public trust in news reporting to the lowest level of any U.S. institution. To address this, we started a nonprofit, the Center for Integrity in News Reporting.
The Center for Integrity in News Reporting, CFINR, is on a mission to rebuild public trust in journalism, one newsroom and one classroom at a time. We champion the effort to have news organizations and journalism schools create and prominently display their own clear, concise statements of core journalistic values. Learn more by visiting the Center for Integrity and News Reporting site at cfinr.org.
Peter, welcome back to E&P Reports. The last time you joined me, we were talking about your bold idea for Gannett, asking them to donate the Register Guard in Eugene to the University of Oregon so you and your students could keep it alive. At the time, Gannett said they weren't ready to give it up because it was still making a little money. Since then, the paper has thinned out even more, right?
Yeah, it was an intriguing idea. We thought that it might work for Gannett to get a nice tax write-off and for the university to take over the paper, as you said, with student reporters and some guidance from professors. There would be some conflict of interest, of course. How do we cover the university if we own the paper? But it didn't get that far because Gannett said they were still making a few dollars here and there with the Register Guard, and that they would consider the suggestion once they were no longer making any money.
Well, let's go back to why you're here. It's a new book, came out in May, Don't Shoot the Journalist, Migrating to Stay Alive.
Yeah, let me show the cover because it's this is not an advertisement. We're not on the Home Shopping Network.
Right.
But it shows what we're talking about here in a stark graphic reality. And the book is a project that came out of a conference that we held at the University of Oregon, looking into the issue of journalists who feel they must exile themselves in order to survive because of their threats. And this is a global phenomenon. We have, so each chapter in the book, it comes out of that conference and or is written by a conferee who came from somewhere to talk with us. So we have chapters that deal with an Afghan journalist who worked for a television station in Kabul, as did his brother. His brother went out of the house to go to work, started the car, and the car blew up. There's an Al Jazeera journalist who self-exiled under traumatic conditions out of her reporting post in Gaza, and a whole collection of these types, including, Mike, and this is important. This is for us in putting this book together. We are not just turning the camera away from the United States and saying, look at the mess in the world. There are 3 chapters that look at these types of problems in America. One of them is Jeff Kamen. Jeff Kamen covered Martin Luther King and the civil rights movement in the South. And he was, I should try to skip up to the page here so that I can show you. He was beaten by the Klan, page 139. He was beaten by a group of Klansmen. And this was, I don't know if this picture is going to work for you here, but there you can see that's on the ground is Jeff Kamen. Over by the car there is his Nagra or his reel to 5-inch reel-to-reel recorder. So you can tell from the recorder and from the costumes of those who are beating him that we're talking about the early 60s. And you see the guy leaning against the car with the pipe. That is the sheriff of the Mississippi County where Jeff is being beaten. And Jeff self-exiled that next day. Jeff and I are colleagues, and Jeff has never returned to Mississippi.
Peter, when journalists or public voices like Charlie Kirk are silenced, forced into exile, or even killed, what does this mean for a community and for society at large? Now, I want to be clear to our audience. We scheduled this interview before the tragic shooting of Charlie Kirk. And at the time we're taping this conversation, no suspect has been apprehended. We don't know whether he was targeted for his politics, his podcast, or something else entirely. But his death underscores the risks that come with speaking publicly. And I'd like to hear your perspective on what is lost when these voices are taken from us.
Yeah, it's such a reminder of the importance of our work and the danger, potential danger of our work. Where we are headed, that there are a couple of things that are of immediate concern. First of all, because of our culture, because of the way the Second Amendment is interpreted, not just by the courts and lawmakers, but by the citizenry, we live in this armed camp, and we become, unless there's something unique about the shooting or the victim, as is the case with Charlie Kirk, we become it becomes almost like a routine. Another shooting, another shooting. So that can't exist in absence of reporters. Reporters have to think about this too. They're reporting on it and they're in the public eye. And consequently, there's the actual danger in response to your query, Mike. There's the actual danger. And then there are the repercussions. Perhaps one of the worst is self-censorship. What are reporters going to do, not just in terms of the copy that they generate, but how they report? What story, I often ask my students at the University of Oregon, what story is worth dying for? Well, the only answer that I think is fair is no story, because then you can't be around to report the next one. And so if no story is worth dying for, where is that level of self-censorship?
You teach young students, preparing them for the world they're going into to do research, enterprise journalism, and to do opinion, I assume. What role should you and other professors take in today's world to prepare youth for the industry they're entering? May I ask you that?
Yeah, it's such a difficult question, Mike, and it's such a somber and sober response. I teach directly, and I'm not alone amongst the faculty. I teach survival. I teach the reality that, along with all of the other potential dangers of being a reporter, reporters in today's context have to think about their personal safety in relation to what they're reporting and how that's received by the audience. This is not new. This goes back to the beginnings of this country. But in terms of the level of danger, I don't think it's ever been this high. So let me, if I may, look to the epilogue here and and just note two things from it. Okay. The first is a colleague of mine. Now, Eugene, for those who don't know, or for those who know, is a sweet, typical small American college town. We have a gorgeous campus. It's a lovely place to live. And it's in the Willamette Valley. If you happen to like wine, we have Pinot Noir that makes the French embarrassed. And we have great grilled wild salmon that we pull right in from the Pacific. So it's a lovely little town. The massive pickup truck was spotted by a professor colleague of mine. It was rolling slowly through our bucolic university town, but it was the bumper sticker, not the pickup, that held his gaze. The media is a virus, it threatened. I am the cure. Now, that's just a bumper sticker. But what happens next in the epilogue is that we go to Colorado Springs, and you might be familiar with this story. 39-year-old, there was this guy, 39-year-old Patrick Thomas Egan. He was arrested when he followed in a taxi a Colorado TV reporter, Jaron Alex, into Grand Junction. I said Colorado Springs, it's Grand Junction, excuse me. This car was marked, KKCO and KCJT. And the reporter pulls up to the stoplight, and both the taxi driver and the reporter roll down their windows. This is from the police report, and the guy driving the taxi yells out. And it's important to note that the reporter is born in this country. He's a citizen. He's a graduate of Clemson. He's Asian by appearance, and they both roll down their windows.
And what year was this, if I may ask?
What year was this?
Yes.
This was December, Mike. This was 10 months ago.
Okay, go ahead.
This was after the election, and the reporter and the taxi driver roll down their window, and the taxi driver, I'm looking down at the book because I want to make sure that I'm quoting it properly from the police report. Are you even a U.S. citizen? This is Trump's America now. I'm a Marine, and I took an oath to protect the country from people like you. He then follows the reporter to the television station parking lot. The reporter gets out and heads to the entrance, and he gets him in a chokehold. His colleagues see this on surveillance video cameras that are shooting it. They come out, get the guy off of him. They've called the police. The police arrive. Now, that's one incident. It's one crazy person. But unfortunately, in today's environment, to go back to your question, I teach survival tactics to journalism students.
As chilling as that story is, I have to jump in here and say that the same could be true for a a right-leaning reporter doing investigative stories on a let's say on a Salem station, an imbalanced person who has a bumper sticker that says Trump is the enemy of the people could be just as imbalanced and perform a similar act, right?
Yeah, of course, of course. We have criminals, unbalanced individuals, however we want to identify an assassin of this ilk, or an assassin of any ilk, and that's why we have to bear this in mind as we practice our profession. We have to take as much responsibility as we can for our health and safety without jeopardizing the veracity and validity and potency of what we are doing as journalists. And at the same time, we have to look out for each other. And this is an environment that has changed since you and I were cub reporters, and that has to be made clear to those who are coming up, and we have to bear it in mind too. And on some level, Mike, I would bet, we don't know each other well, but we know each other. I would bet even when you are talking on this broadcast, speaking as E&P, and while I'm talking to you now, we're running kind of like on 7-second delay of a radio talk show. We're making sure that, and it's good, we should be responsible in our exchanges, but we're making sure that what we're saying is what we want out there. It lasts for a long time, and maybe we're being a little more reticent than we would have been a generation ago.
Dr. Peter Laufer, world-traveling journalist, author, editor of an amazingly insightful and timely book now, Don't Shoot the Journalist, advocate for press freedom, and also now the James Wallace Chair of Journalism, the University of Oregon, and second appearance on E&P Reports for also someone who really went out on a limb approaching Gannett saying, give me this newspaper and I'll work with it with my student body. And so far, still crickets, right? They have yet to come back to you and say, okay, it's yours.
We'll take credit for it being a slightly better newspaper than it was when we made the approach.
There you go. Thank you so much.
Mike, it's such a pleasure to speak with you and to reflect on the good work that's going on with you and E&P.
Thank you, Peter. It's always a pleasure to chat with you.